Big break in TV. Let the fun time begin.
Hello, campers, streamers, and babysitters. And yes, we are back with Prime Time Terror. It has been a minute. We stopped after Chucky finished its run. When was that? Back in November?
Yeah, I think wasn't it the beginning of November?
Yeah, I think beginning of November, or a week
No.
before.
Well, because
Was
it
it
kind of
right
ran
before
into Christmas.
Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I think it was right before Thanksgiving because they had the
Okay.
Christmas episode and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Yeah, so that was the last time we did it. We had talked about maybe punching in a couple episodes here and there, but of course we got caught up with Christmas and all that stuff going on. And then we had to get the end of the year stuff going, and then by the time that was all done, and we were like, "Wow, why don't we do some pick a show and do something?" The Last of Us was coming on, so we were
Fell
like,
right
"It's
into our
perfectly
lap.
time." Yeah, and I know this is something we talked about on I know I did a short about the trailer when it came out. We talked about it on Sunday Scaries a couple times. This was something we were definitely interested in. I'm a huge fan of the games. I've played both of them. I've played them both several times. And Luke, you have a very passing knowledge. You've played a little bit of the first one, you said?
Yes, I own the first game.
Yeah,
Never.
none of the second one, though, right?
No, not at all. And I've watched some gameplay footage on them just because I know what the story and people speak so highly of it. Plus, it's always felt like something that, I would love just from a story perspective. It's hard for me to sit down and actually commit to a video game, but like just hearing from the story and kind of the character development and everything, it's always intrigued me, but I've never actually gave this a full watch or playthrough.
Yeah, no. And this is something that I remember when the first one came out. I was really excited for it. I didn't have a PlayStation 3 at the time. So it was one of those things where I never got a chance to play it. I didn't play the first one until I got a PS4 and I bought the little remaster that they did. And yeah, it was a great game. It was a really solid story. It was definitely one of those ones where I'm like, I understand why this is in such high regard for a lot of people. That was first and foremost very easy. When the second game came out, it was funny enough, right after quarantine really started to kind of lift and people were going back to work. And of course, that game was maligned with controversy. I think that a lot of that was pretty silly. But it's one of those things where it's like that game sucked me in. Like that felt like, and mind you, I played the first one when I was maybe 15 or 16. So this one I'm playing as like a full-fledged adult. And I felt like I was watching a television show. Like I'd sit down, I'd come home after work, I'd sit down for like 2 hours or so a night for about a week there, and I would just play. And it was really enthralling, really got me back into it. So if you ask me, I would say I enjoyed the second one more, but I haven't replayed the first one since then, and I want to because I think that I might see it in a different perspective. So yeah, I was excited for the TV show, to say the least. I enjoyed the casting. I know people have a lot of issues with who they casted, I guess. Like that just seems to be a problem, but you're never going to make everybody happy. But Pedro Pascal is a excellent actor. And yeah, I guess I'm going to throw this off to you since this is your introduction to the world. So I want to get your perspective as somebody who's only played a little bit of the game. And, this is your first we're diving into the world of The Last of Us. How do you feel?
And I've played, I think, well, before we got on here, I told you the extent of me playing this game was the very opening where Joel's daughter gets shot. And like, that's all I knew. So that's pretty much, as we were going into this, that's what I was waiting for, because it was like, oh, at least this is reminiscent for me. And, I kind of know what this looks like. Because, for me, I was telling you previously that beyond that point, I don't know if there were like a lot of shot for shots in terms of taking from the video game, or was more so original. For this, I think they set the world beautifully. This was, and I don't know if it's a legitimate kind of hesitation or not. I wasn't sure how this was going to play with like how The Walking Dead went, and how that I think overstayed its welcome, and kind of dealing with the Walking Dead and post-apocalyptic things. I didn't know if this was going to be reminiscent of that. So that was kind of my hesitation, just because I trailed off on The Walking Dead like I think a lot of people did. So I didn't know if that's what this was really. I was going to get those vibes at all. But I will say, from that opening here, and just diving into a little bit where they're driving through, that's from the video game, and we see the the jets and everything, and the jet crashing. Oh my gosh, great imagery. I think they really did a great job from bringing it from video game to on the actual screen there. But overall, I think this has its own unique voice. I didn't get Walking Dead vibes from it at all. I think this is its own contained thing. Overall, this episode I was very pleased with.
Yeah, I agree with you. As a fan of the video game, it was interesting to kind of watch it because you have those expectations in your head. You know how the first game starts, so I was just kind of like, well, we got like an hour and a half on this first episode, so I'm wondering what exactly we're going to do here. And they kind of change a little bit of it. So obviously, we get to spend the morning with Sarah and Joel, and we get to see a little bit of their relationship with Tommy, and we get to know the neighbors. That's all stuff we didn't get in the video game. And we see Sarah go to the city and everything and fix the watch. And I loved how they kind of trickled in like the buildup of something is coming. It
I
was
was
very subtle.
I was actually curious if they were gonna end it with, that beginning part of the video game with them driving, and that's how they were gonna end the episode, and just kind of do their own original content, throughout the actual entire episode to kinda let you live with the characters a little more. Um, but like you're saying, like, that opening up, that little extra, I don't know what the runtime was on that, but, I think it was like, I think I timed it for a second. I think I paused it, I don't know if I mean, like, I'm assume if you're familiar with the game, you know exactly what happens to Joel's daughter, and I timed that because it was, like, at 20 minutes, and I gotta tell you, having a daughter of my own, it hits different. So, it's like,
It does.
I paused
See,
it for a second, so it's just like, I knew the runtime of that just because it was like, oh my gosh, I was overwhelmed, and there's a lot of overwhelming imagery, I think, in this just first episode.
it does. And, it's one of those things where I also, sitting there with my wife, because we were also new parents, and our son's sitting there. We had just made dinner kind of late tonight. So it was one of those things where he is covered in spaghetti, just having a good old time. And then I'm just watching this poor girl die in his arms, which, I've seen that happen twice because of playthroughs. And, it's just as impactful as it was in the game. I gotta say, Pedro Pascal sells that scene so beautifully. And I think that everybody who was in there, I really adore the casting
Yeah.
of him. I think that he definitely embodies Joel. Like even just from his looks and everything, like he just really embodies that character. I can already tell you that that's probably the best cast person in the show. Jumping ahead a little bit for Ellie, it's one of those things where it's like we didn't get a lot of time with her. So it's one of those things where I'm going to hold out on my judgment for Bella Ramsey just yet, because I mean, she doesn't really come in or get to really do a lot until probably the last 15-20 minutes of the
Yeah.
episode. This is very Joel centric, as it probably should be, because I mean, we're coming off of the very beginning of the game. They adapt it pretty faithfully. And then they add on to it, which again, I got to say, that was stuff that I loved. I really liked the opening to this. With the 1960s conversation about fungus and the infections and things like
Yes.
that. It sets the stage very beautifully. And, I know that this is probably going to get a lot of comparisons to Chernobyl because it's Craig Mazin. But did you watch Chernobyl?
I did, yes.
Yeah, that gave me the biggest Chernobyl vibes. Just watching that and just the way that it was all set and everything, like I was just like, okay, yeah, no, I definitely see that influence coming from them. But yeah, I mean, this definitely, when we get away from that and we get to 2003, which is a little bit of a deviation from the game itself, because
I was curious.
the game I think is set in 2013 if I remember correctly, because it's still a 20-year time jump, but that goes to 2033. I know
Okay.
that, but they wanted to set this in modern day, so that's why they kind of did that. But I think they captured it wonderfully. My wife and I were having a great time sitting there looking at just all the older household appliances and stuff like that, and being like, hey, we had a kind of an older oven like that when I was a kid and stuff like that at the neighbor's house and everything, and seeing George Bush as the president up on the wall and stuff like that. You're just like, damn, like I was a little kid then, like, and they really do a great job of setting you in that time. And yeah, I agree, that whole opening is just so, it's a gut punch. but it bleeds off with just all this intensity beforehand. And me knowing what was coming, my wife not. It's one of those things where I was just kind of anticipating her reaction to that because yeah, it's tough. And she was sad. I mean, she really bought into these characters right off the bat, and I think that's a testament to the actors, man.
And jumping into their version of 2023 there, again, I mentioned my hesitation for like The Walking Dead and this post-apocalyptic kind of world that they're living in. I think they captured that beautifully. I love when Joel's walking on the crowded streets, and you have some military there and you have just random people trying to get by. And then what about where they're burning? Uh,
The bodies,
my
yep,
gosh, like
and the
again,
child.
where I say there's just terrifying imagery throughout this entire episode here. I mean, they kind of pelt you with it one after the other, but then I love the relationships that are that they kind of display. Him kind of selling the pills to the military guy, and then also them, for breaking quarantine rules and going into zones you're not supposed to be. How they have the public hangings and things
Hmm.
like that. A very interesting world that they actually built upon. And again, I feel like it's unique to its own. I didn't get vibes of anything that I've seen previously in any other content. I think again, me not knowing the video games, I don't know if this is true to that or not, but I thought they built that world beautifully and kind of bringing their own thing to it with the fireflies and stuff like that. I'm curious to see where that's going to lead. And kind of because I keep bringing up The Walking Dead. I know they kind of have like cults and things in their shows as well. So I don't know if that's where they're going with here or it's something more earnest. I don't know.
It's a bit different. Like there's definitely I would say a little bit more of a realistic approach than Walking Dead. With this kind of thing, it's not going to be nearly as, I mean, it's drama, but it's not going to be as like corny drama
Over
as
the
it
top.
got as things got along there. This is going to be very much grounded in a sense. Like I think they captured that really well. I expected that from Craig Mazin. We also had Neil Druckmann on the creative side of this, who is the
Yes.
creator of the game and everything. And I mean, he's just a fantastic writer. So it's one of those things where it's like it's awesome to see his work get translated. And I'm sure for somebody who's been living in this world now for a better part of 10 years, I'm sure that this was a nice breath of fresh air for him to be able to kind of say, okay, I can take this story now and kind of condense what I had to condense for the game and update it for the show, which is kind of weird because like I sat there and said to my wife, I was like, it's interesting to me to see because normally it's the other way around. Normally, with video game stuff, they either change it completely and do their own thing, or they kind of just do like a condensed version.
Yeah.
For this, it's almost like they did the game, but they added to it. So it's almost like we're getting a little bit more expansion to the lore and stuff. And some of it wasn't exact, but it's one of those things where it's like it felt right. It felt smooth. It felt nice. I was really invested, and honestly, I'm anticipating that second episode very much. I think that HBO's got a real winner on its hands here so far. I mean, this pilot is doing well. I mean, I ran into an issue where my episode crashed about halfway through. I just got a little error notification, had to reload a couple times, and then I get on Twitter and everybody's like, "Oh, well, my episode crashed." And then when I finished, it said comicbook.com was reporting that HBO servers crashed for some people because of the premiere. So I think that there's a lot of anticipation behind this, and I think it's well deserved. I think that these guys have got a good handle on this.
And I almost ran into a problem as well because I waited till the last minute to get on HBO Max. So I'm sitting there at 8:59 and it's just kind of buffering. And I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone's trying to get on here right now. And I didn't know if I was going to make it, but I did get on. Didn't have any actually issues watching the show, kind of played straight through for me. But going into, you mentioned Craig Mazin here and Neil Druckmann. I think it's a perfect combination here in terms of writing. Like Chernobyl for me, I thought was fine. It wasn't like the greatest thing. I know a lot of people speak very highly of it. Understand why. It just didn't hit with me as much as it did with a lot of people. But like looking at that event and then having Craig Mazin, I know that was such a passion project for him. They've been working on for years. And being able to take that event and kind of outline it in terms of We need to hit on this. We need to hit on that because so many things happen during that event. It's like I think that's what a 5-episode miniseries. It's you
Mhm.
kind of got to designate what you're going to be picking and choosing to use, and then you have Neil Druckmann there, kind of the guy, you know, end all be all. He knows everything, so it's kind of like to strip away the entire video game and build upon a lot of the elements that are going to make this TV show feel like the video game, but also make it unique into its own. I think it's a perfect combination to kind of get that unique storytelling, but also staying true to the source material as well. And what I don't know too much about video games. I think Neil Druckmann. I love Uncharted, and I think he did something with that. I don't know, but I know kinda this kind of volatile relationship that there is with, video games being brought into either film or TV shows, and it's never, it doesn't translate well, and I know Uncharted had just come out. I didn't watch it. I know a lot of people didn't speak too highly of it and kinda had issues with casting there as well, um, which was sad to see because, Uncharted, just like The Last of Us, I feel, are 2 games that are really ripe to translate into film or a TV show. And, one did not hit in at least right now, this was a very first strong episode for The Last of Us.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I think he to piggyback off your thing there, I believe he did have some influence. He was a designer and a writer for the Uncharted games.
Okay.
And then he became a creative director for The
Okay.
Last of Us and Uncharted 4. I'm looking at it right now. So, it's one of those things where it's like he's got his hands in this. He is I believe he's the vice president for Naughty Dog, or co-vice president, one of the
Let's
two.
get that Crash Bandicoot miniseries.
But yeah, he's doing his thing, and I think he's got a winner here. I mean, everybody has really hailed this series from the start, so it's one of those things where it's like to see it translate so well onto the small screen is really great. And I mean, I think that having this land on HBO was a great call because
Absolutely.
I think that they have the structure and the ability to make this look not only high quality, but that they're not going to hold back as much. Because I watch like House of the Dragon and stuff like that, and that's a very intense, very brutal show at times. And this world is intense and it's brutal, and I'm excited as we continue on to see what more they're going to show, what more they're going to be able to bring. I'm excited to get deeper in with the clickers. But I'm even more excited to see some of these horrible, nasty human characters that are going to be showing up at some point here, and getting your reaction on that. Because I'm in for this. We'll kind of talk more about it, I think, in the season finale wrap up of where I'm curious to see where this is going to end, and then what we're going to do. Because I'm kind of hoping we get maybe 2 seasons out of the first game here. And then we'll move into maybe another season just in between the events of this game and 2, where they can do a little bit more original content. Because I just know when we start cracking into the second game, there's going to be a lot of bitching, especially if they stay faithful to it. But we'll see. I'm
Um,
very curious to see what happens.
Yeah, for me, this episode extremely strong. Especially, I just love the setups when they got when they passed the wall, I guess,
Hmm.
and kind of got out into that world. I thought that was set up perfectly. Just that looming dread, and the kind of conflict that we get right there, kind of showing Joel having a flashback and then kind of reverting into that mode. I thought was very, very intriguing, especially for to be one of the last scenes, and then the way we leave it with the Depeche Mode and just kind of getting the overlay of everything. I thought it was a perfect way to kind of an end cap for that episode. I thought it leaves you wanting more. I cannot wait till next Sunday to check out the next episode. I went into this episode thinking this was an hour, and then realized we had an hour and a half of content here. And I'll say, I actually got a sense of relief when I thought we were closing in on the end and realized I had another half hour because I wanted to live with these characters. So it's like it's got
I
me
the
eager.
same.
It's got me eager to see what the next episode's going to be. I think this was so well done. I thought they built great tension. Again, the world that they've created here is fantastic. I can't wait to be back next week.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. So, yeah, pretty much positive sentiments all around for the start of The Last of Us here from us. Very good. Happy to be saying that. I'm excited to see what happens next week. But yeah, I guess that about wraps us up here. You guys can stick with us as always. If you're new here and you're just discovering, please hit that subscribe button. We are going to be covering each and every episode right after they air every Sunday until the season finale. And yeah, we got a lot of other great content coming to you and what we just posted. You had Sunday Scaries with me on there. Talking some horror movie news from today. And then also we had reviews for Sick and Skinamarink just this past weekend. So lots of good stuff coming there and even more to come this week. So keep an eye on the channel. We got lots of great stuff on the way. And yeah, I guess so. That about wraps us up. So until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.